1, 2, 3, pick it up, go!
Mankind must put an end to war. A war will put an end to mankind.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Well, I'm not drunk. I learned everything I got.
Go! 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 Go!
Change will not come if we wait for some other person.
Hey, Internet land, welcome back to the amazing Jacob and Elliott Show. No, just kidding.
No.
The
That would scare anyone away.
Partisan podcast.
Yeah, we have to give it a name that doesn't involve our names, otherwise no one would ever watch it.
I don't think they're watching anyway.
You're
so
right.
You know what? I mean, we've been doing 3 or 4 of these, just the two of us. Are we ever gonna have anybody else on?
Of course.
Okay.
Just waiting for the right people.
So we need some people to join us on these things. So the way things typically go, if you didn't catch that, this is Jacob, the beautiful red-haired specimen, Jacob.
Oh, that's all you have to say about me?
Yes, because everything else is
You know,
bad.
I'm more than just my look. Oh.
Nope. The only thing good about you is your looks. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, man. So to get anybody up to speed that hasn't listened before or watched before, because I know you love the YouTubes, we have a topic that is given to us by a secret overlord, and it is bestowed upon us with not much notice. And we have to illuminate on the Illuminati's
Messaging for the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what's our topic today?
We're talking about President Donald J. Trump
Nice.
and his relationship with the media.
Well, okay, so I got the topic Trump and the media.
Yeah.
So you extrapolated this and already morphed it into relationship with the media.
Well, I mean, Trump and the media,
Okay.
yeah.
So
I think there's a lot of ways you can go with that, which is good because,
I
you
don't
don't
know.
want
I
to
don't have a lot of ways.
30 seconds.
So what tell me what you think about that. I don't know.
First of all, the first thing I think of when I hear Trump and the words media in the same sentence is one of Donald Trump's favorite catchphrases.
Rosie O'Donnell?
No, the other one.
I don't know.
You're fired? No, the other one. Build
China.
that wall.
China.
Hillary's emails. No. No, fake news.
So fake news, right. That was like literally pulling a tooth out of you.
Why do you think Trump's such a big user of that phrase? Why is that his go-to when talking about his perceived opponents in the media?
All right. So there had been in the past, especially, a liberal slant to news, and he is preying upon that. To his, I don't know what you call them because they're not Republicans, but these people that follow him, right? His supporters. He's sort of just taking advantage of that mindset that Republicans have been disadvantaged in the media in the past. So he's just exaggerating. It's really more of an exaggeration and sometimes outright untrue, right? But there's this kernel of truth, this small thing, and he builds this entire hailstone.
That's Trump's strategy with most things, right?
Absolutely. Well, like you were saying about the wall as a catchphrase, and China as a catchphrase, right?
China?
Yeah. So these are the things that there's a tiny bit of truth. We have a trade imbalance. Some of that's good, but he's taking advantage of the bad parts. And
yeah, if you want to hear more about that, it's almost like we did an entire discussion on that before.
Yes, we did. So
Yeah.
I won't go into it.
No.
Okay. And so anyway, so that I think that's like the whole fake news thing. I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody else doesn't think or agree with. I mean, unless you're a hardcore Trump supporter, I think that's an obvious thing. He's just sort of using.
Okay, so you did mention though a liberal, even if it's like bias to news. Which outlets have that liberal bias?
So on average, almost all of them. So when it's so this is where there's a difference, right? There's a difference between news agencies and commentary, right? So things like MSNBC and Fox News, those are commentary almost exclusively. But with little gaps where they actually tell some news, and like so Fox News might have a right wing balance on the hard news, and that reveals itself, I think, mostly through exclusion, right? So they're telling some stories but leaving out others. They're not necessarily biasing those stories super directly.
Sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. But like in the news reporting part. And sometimes it's hard to make a difference as to what, as to choose which is which, right?
Like if you're watching Fox and Friends, that's more of a talk show than a news show, but some of their other programming, just using Fox as the example.
Yeah.
It can be really hard to tell the difference.
Right. And MSNBC similar. There are good journalists on those networks, so it's hard to like lump them all together, right? So I don't. It's hard for me to talk about Fox News or MSNBC or CNN or ABC as like one thing because I don't watch all of it. So I'm not qualified to actually say this is left wing or right wing. Certain shows absolutely are, though, right? Yeah. And certain personalities absolutely are. And I think we can say who all.
There's always bias, even for organizations that you wouldn't necessarily say are that biased, either left or right. They still have their biases. CNN.
Every human being is biased, and if you're not biased, you're not a human being.
I don't really think CNN has much of a liberal bias. Maybe a slight left leaning, but they're no hardcore, crazy, out there kind of source, right? You'd say they're
okay,
but they are very, very pro government, pro big government.
So these things kind of go hand in hand, right? So and it's inevitable. So universities tend to be left wing because they tend to be state funded. So that these things just kind of feed on each other, right?
Just because lots of young people.
And young people tend to skew more left, right? Because they haven't actually worked for any money, so they have no interest in making sure that people who have worked
maybe it's
for money
because the young people haven't become jaded yet enough to the world, and think they can actually do change in the positive direction.
Well, see, that's an interesting thing. So you think conservatives don't want to change the world in a positive direction?
No. I said that's not necessarily their goal. Because, conservative means, generally keeping things as is or being less less hands-on, I'd say. Is that a fair statement?
Okay, so like that's super loaded, right? Because the terms are ridiculous, right? So when we use conservative and liberal, they don't mean Republican, Democrat.
No.
Because like I don't even know what either party stands for anymore. Both are both of those things. There are lots of, for example, abortion is the law of the land in the United States. Republicans don't want it to be that way. So the conservative view on that would be the Democrat view, right? By and large.
Keep it as it is.
Keep it as it is.
That is interesting of a point.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things like that. And whenever you talk about cutting taxes, that is a change. So that's not conservative in that way, right?
Right.
It's a conservative spending idea, right? But so like I wouldn't classify it as like conservatives don't want change. But
all right, here's a fun question for you.
Yeah.
Which media outlet does Trump hate the most, in your opinion? Is it A, CNN, B, the fake news New York Times, or C, the Washington Post?
Okay, so it's interesting you threw in Washington Post because that's what I was going to throw in there. I've heard him mention the Washington Post the most.
Yes,
but I don't know that. I mean, I'm not, and that's without getting in his head, right? But like, right. I can't say that authoritatively. I don't, for good reason. I try not to follow all the things that he says.
You want to keep your sanity, but if from what I've caught from what he's said, you hear all three of those named quite regularly, and there's evidence to point. I mean, he posted on his Twitter, shared some memes of him body slamming CNN,
That's right. Yes.
He talks, he's never, I don't think he's ever just said the New York Times. It's always the fake news New York Times.
True.
And then there's the Washington Post thing. Now, the Washington Post, I think his issue with them is because they tend to do more expose pieces and more actual, journalism.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting about that. is a billionaire, Jeff Bezos, right? Who goes on and off again being the wealthiest person in the history of the human race. He bought the Washington Post, right? That's when he bought, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I think so. Don't quote us on that, but
No, yeah. I mean, that's the Washington newspaper, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I was second guessing it, but so anyway, he bought that, and Trump has like lumped Amazon in with that, and like has threatened Amazon because of that, and like there's all these weird things associated with that. But one thing that is fascinating to me, based on that conservative liberal discussion we just had, was whatever Bezos's politics, which honestly are probably more right wing than Trump.
Right, 'cause he wants to save himself money.
Well, I mean, and I'm gonna circle back to that, but
Okay.
but he's a business person who bought the paper, and he's just like, okay, do what you got to do what you're good at.
I mean,
right?
his main company is
He
also
saved them.
famously anti-union.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So in terms of like why a wealthy person like Bezos or Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, all these big names, right? These big name business people, or the Google guys, whatever.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah. So the it's funny because like a lot of these guys will skew more liberal. So the Google guys would claim to be Democrat supporters. I think they outwardly supported Hillary.
While also donating money to both sides.
Oh yeah, of course they do that, right? And whatever, maybe that's astute for a big business to do, but which just makes the problem worse with more money in politics. But whatever. But the thing is, I feel like they're very two-faced because their corporate policies, because they are corporations and they're beholden to their tax or to their shareholders, and they have to minimize taxes and all of the things that a big business has to do, right? Mm-hmm. They're gonna do conservative types of things, like the whole like putting money to Ireland that Google and Apple did. It's not a
Aren't
very.
they still doing that?
Well,
Apple is for sure.
I
right?
don't know what the status of that is, and like it got Ireland in trouble with the EU,
Yeah,
and
there
like
was a whole bunch of stuff.
yeah. So I don't know exactly what the status of that is, but theoretically the tax cuts helped with that. But it's funny because I wouldn't classify Tim Cook or Steve Jobs as conservatives in almost any fashion, except like they are, they're CEOs, right? So anyway,
They're 1%ers,
Well, yeah, yes,
I don't know.
yes.
Yeah, Tim Cook's probably part of the 1%. He's probably got millions in the bank.
Are you joking? Yeah, he actually got more, like his salary and everything.
I bet, especially with how much Apple.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's fine. But so like I think Trump has to be a little careful classifying certain organizations as fake anything or biased in a way against him, because if they weren't before, well, they're gonna be. And I think he's got to watch out for that.
So that's a difference, though. We sat here for 5 minutes saying, the clearly left-leaning bias things like MSNBC, and the clearly right-leaning things like Fox News, Breitbart, etc. Right? Well, Breitbart.
So okay, so I think so I'm basing that more on what I hear, because I literally watch zero MSNBC or Fox News except the clips I see on Facebook and YouTube.
But you get what I'm saying, right?
I understand.
We sat there saying they're pretty much just as bad as each other, right?
That is my understanding, but
I'd say that's a fine understanding.
But I haven't measured that,
right?
So,
and how would you?
Well, I've seen different ways of measuring it. So, like they'll measure different topics. They measure.
But are those measurement accounts in themselves biased?
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So that's the thing. So I like to frame it more in terms of the personalities, right? So somebody like Rachel Maddow, is she liberal?
Yeah,
I would say she would say yes, right?
Yeah.
And
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity, that's the one I was really trying to grasp for. I think he definitely would claim to be conservative. So those personalities, I think you can very much say. And there are more of those on Fox News, and there are more of the other on MSNBC.
So here's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
Trump would not agree. Trump thinks that the left-leaning stuff are biased out to get him, and the only ones telling the truth are Fox News. Mm-hmm. And you can have that own personal belief, but I find this contrast interesting because we've never had that before. George Bush was never like, Fox News, they're always on my side. They're the ones you need to listen to. Get woke people, So you never had Obama going, MSNBC is the greatest and Fox News is shameful and,
Right. They weren't as astute politically as Trump. I think he is a political genius.
Who?
Trump.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that he got elected and nobody thought he would, including me. The fact that I think he's going to help stem the possibility of a blue wave because he will get his supporters out to vote for people that will support him.
Man, that blue wave, it's such a questioning thing right now.
It'll be interesting,
Yeah.
And we're at ground zero for that.
We're, as we said in the first episode of this season 2 weird thing we've been doing, we're the most purple state.
I feel like we are. I mean, or we're among a couple that are
at the
very purple,
very minimal top 5.
Yeah. I mean, okay. So, I mean, just with us, right? You classify yourself as like radical left. And
I'm not going to hide that fact.
And
I am a democratic socialist.
Yeah.
Boom.
So in terms of like those types of labels, I tend to be more libertarian.
I always say, Elliot, fiscally, you're very conservative, and socially, you're a cool guy.
It's funny, though, because I just saw on Facebook within like 2 days, one person called me like a ridiculous liberal.
Mm-hmm.
That was being paired with you, and and then somebody else painted me as a radical conservative, and this is a regular occurrence where I have to feel like I'm having to be defending both sides, and I'm like, I don't want to defend either side. I think like the two parties are ridiculous. So
there is one big part of the media we haven't discussed.
Facebook.
Social media is definitely part of
Yeah.
it. I suppose that's fair, but not who I was going for. I think we'll have to include them.
Yeah.
It's this.
Podcasting.
Independent media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's much harder to gauge, right? Because outside of the
variety.
Well, right. And outside of like the top 100 list on iTunes, like it's hard to get a metric of those, right? You could probably ask some people that are like really deeply embedded in the advertising business, but I haven't heard one way or the other which side has more podcasts. My gut is that there are more. Well, okay. So this even gets more nuanced than this, right? Because a lot of tech people tend to, and I don't know where this came from, but they used to be, all tech people used to be libertarian. Like anybody involved in the early internet, all libertarian. So like the PayPal guys and, they were like...
Right, because the internet was about freedom.
It was a wild west. It was freedom. So the people attracted to it, like me, were very freedom-minded, right? And at some point that skewed a little to the left. Right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So I would say they're like a little bit. They're like democratic libertarians.
I mean,
right?
what's the location you think of when you think of technology?
Well, Silicon Valley, yeah.
And what is famously one of the most like liberal places around? Silicon Valley. So that's probably part of it.
Well, I don't think Silicon Valley.
No,
when you think of like San Jose,
yeah,
Mountain View, Cupertino, like that whole area. I don't know that that's necessarily, but. The People's Republic of California, of course, skews a little to the left.
Wow. That name there you got. That reminds me of like one of those really, really bad Facebook memes that are, the type of thing your crazy uncle sends you or,
Well, if you've ever been out there, it is a different planet from here because they have referendums for everything. We had to battle to get a half of a referendum put on the ballot for us in Brown County. They got referendums for everything. You go on every street corner, there's like support Proposition 87.6. And I'm like, what are you talking
What does that do? It allows us to ship cows from Northern California to Southern California.
This crazy stuff. And it's all worded crazy. So you're like, I don't know if I support that or if I hate it. I don't even know. Anyway, I digress. So California skews left. Yes, no question.
Yeah.
And these guys are based in California. So
Southern California does. Northern California is.
Well, that's an interesting piece too, right? Like, so you could slice off big chunks of California, and if they were their own state, they would be conservative. Yeah.
Which some very conservative people have wanted.
A lot of people want that. Because the other
Should
thing
we just cut up all the states into smaller states?
Oh, God. So I saw this thing today. Okay, we're going way.
What are we
tangent.
talking about?
So I saw this thing today where they sliced it. They're like, America isn't red and blue. It's like strips the country into these like regional areas of like the Appalachia and the El Norte, they called it, like the part that borders Mexico. And I'm like, what are you talking about? A liberal person from Green Bay has more in common with a liberal person from El Norte than they do with an alt-right person who lives across the street from them. This makes no sense to me. But
except for our love of the Packers
but that is very apolitical, contrary to Tammy Baldwin.
See, that's what we need right now. We need just more Packers.
I agree.
Bring us together.
I agree. That's why I do a Packer podcast. Anyway.
Look at that. We're getting all the plugs out in this one.
To all 5 listeners, yeah.
Yep.
So, anyway, Trump and the media. Anything else to say about that? I feel like we didn't say much. We kind of...
Social media. Let's talk about his direct interaction with social media. I mean, that could be an entire topic on itself, so we'll keep it brief.
It was masterful.
I mean, I certainly hear more. I've heard President Donald Trump just tweeted this more than I've heard anything about Obama ever.
Well, because like, what did Obama do? He tweeted 4 more years or something. Like really, like just
and like 99% of his tweeting that was done from his official account was some aid.
Yes.
And it's funny because it wasn't just Trump, because you saw it with Bernie Sanders as well, being very aggressive, pushing social media. Both of them did that.
Right.
My question is, should that have continued after he became president?
It depends on...
Yeah, we might want to think about that one.
Well, okay. Should he be tweeting without someone proofreading? No. Should presidents be tweeting directly to the people? I don't have any kind of problem with that. I think that's great.
All right, you know what I think it is? I think he should be allowed to tweet whatever he wants.
Well, he's an American citizen.
But I think he has to tell his people in the government who might be affected by it 2 hours early. Like when he tweeted about how he that giant all caps threat to Iran. And the Defense Department and the State Department had no idea until it happened. Maybe he should have given a fair warning, just like a little memo to them. Hey, I'm going to be bashing Iran.
Heads up. Maybe in the next election, don't hire somebody who's going to threaten other countries with war. Although we didn't have a strong choice for that unless you went for a third party this time.
Yeah, no kidding. Both of them are war hawks.
You're right. And I digress on that. But so in terms of what's masterful about his social media is he is going directly to his people, but also he's he had a term for it. It was so great, like the Trump. I don't know. It was something that I think supposedly he got from Fox News. They came up with it, but it's like this addiction that liberals have to hinging on every word he says and freaking out about it, right?
Yeah, it's an addiction. It's like a drug of, did you see what he... But conservatives had the same thing with Obama. Did you see that Obama was wearing a tan suit? Oh.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And it's... it is interesting how people can be partisan in such a blatant way. But
and then think, we're not being biased, but hey.
Yeah, everyone's biased. And so I guess I don't have a problem with much of it. I don't have a problem with Russians buying ads on Facebook. I don't have a problem with Trump tweeting. I don't have a problem with Breitbart or Alex Jones. I don't have a problem with these people being out there.
Alex Jones.
No,
not for what he says.
You don't have to be a supporter, but
no.
But
my only problem with him is the fact that he scams his fans who tend to be elderly. With fake products.
Doing something illegal, then he needs to be slapped with...
It's legal but unethical. Those gray area things. Should people be shamed for that?
That's every business in this country.
Except for this one, right? We're good people.
So, well, we could have a whole discussion on ethics because ethics is really, that's more in the eye of the beholder, right? You have your ethics, your moral code, right? I have my moral code.
Well, you know,
and they might differ. So the things you think are unethical,
on a show
other people may not.
On a show I used to host called One Word Show, which has a new host now, a cool
Yeah.
guy named Jason.
Mhm.
I said in one episode that my grand motto in life is just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair.
Well, that's fine, except you need to define what dick means.
I think in general people know.
No,
No?
they don't.
Okay.
As we see now, to bring this back to the whole Trump thing, his supporters put up with stuff that he puts out there that they would not have put up with any other human being ever.
That's true.
Especially these elderly people that are being taken advantage of by Alex Jones. They support him blindly. And it's like, well, that he admitted to affairs. Oh, that's fine. He's good for the country. They were freaking out about Clinton. And
I think one thing that's really interesting about his direct interaction with social media is we're experiencing scenarios we've never had before. Like, wasn't it a few months back there was a Supreme Court case saying that Trump as president can't block people on Twitter?
Yeah. And well, okay, so because there is a POTUS account, right?
Mhm.
So because that is an official government thing, I agree with that.
Yeah. So I find it really interesting that, we're past that point where the internet's a Wild West thing, and now we're starting to figure out the real rules. We went, how old is Twitter?
I don't
now?
think that that's so much an internet rule as it is a president of the United States government rule.
But the question is, how do interactions on the internet fit in, and what's allowed, what's not?
The only difference between Twitter and anything else is that in order to talk to his people before his supporters, he'd have to go around the country, which he does still, by the way.
Yeah, can we stop that?
Well, you know what? He is the master campaigner.
Yeah.
I think that will become a label once he gets reelected. I think he will be considered.
Whoa. You said once he does
will be. There's no question, unless some magical candidate made out of pixie dust appears before
It'll
us.
be Oprah.
If Oprah has vehemently said no,
Of course.
If Oprah said yes, then maybe
Because Oprah's
might
smart.
win. Oprah might win. Yeah.
All right. Well, what else do you have to say about the media?
I don't know. If we're gonna cut out all the stupid things we said and just cut down to the meat, we only had about 30 seconds, so we probably
we had intro and then outro.
yeah.
And even that's questionable.
Well, okay. So I googled Trump and the media before I got here. So the news articles are Trump labels news media enemy of the American people.
That's scary.
Okay. So you started with the relationship of Trump with the media. Those are the kinds of things that, he is entitled to his personal opinion.
Yes.
He is, and he's entitled to speak it. When he speaks it as a government official, that's where it becomes gray, right? Is he speaking as the executive branch of the government, or is he speaking as, this is my personal opinion, Donald J. Trump? And that's what's really gray right now. And he never qualifies that. And if he does, he would always say, well, as president,
This is totally unrelated to what we're talking about right now, but I felt like asking this. Do you ever play the what if Obama said it game?
Well, yeah. And I think that the opposite people would freak out and support. That's the thing. Trump is not as polished as Obama. So the way he says things is ridiculous.
To be fair, pretty much no one is polished as Obama.
You're right about that.
If anything, Obama was too polished.
You know what? He was even good when he's unscripted, though.
Yeah, Obama's fun.
I saw him on the David Letterman "My Guest Needs No Introduction" thing. He was amazing. And
Obama's just a cool guy. Politics aside, Obama's a fun guy.
No question. So on the list of people that I would love to have sitting in your chair instead of you, he'd be on the list.
All right, let's send him a formal invitation. I'm sure he'll reply.
He tops the list.
Who else is on that list? Can you give us real quick before we sign out your top 5?
Top 5?
Yeah.
Oprah would totally be on that list.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got 2.
Yeah,
put you on the spot.
So people that Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
And because he's very articulate and very interesting that way. So 2 more.
Yep, two more.
So I would say some CEO types. So Zuck would be interesting because he's not polished,
No.
but he has interesting viewpoints.
I like hearing the views of lizard people.
So Zuck is Mark Zuckerberg, and
One more.
I mean, Tim Cook is he's
You're just
even
fanboy.
he's
You'll be under his desk.
well. So I mean, you know what? So I would actually Jeff Bezos over Tim Cook.
Yeah, that's fair.
Or Zuck probably. So like in that probably I would trust the
All
order.
right, my turn.
But those guys are fascinating.
Yeah,
and like
you pick some good people.
and like I would love to hear what any of them had to say. I mean, mostly non-politically, but yeah.
So I think if I had my own list, of course Obama would be on it because
Yeah.
Obama was just cool. I would actually put Trump on the list
No, because
I want to see the dumpster fire.
But he'd get pissed off and walk off or something. He would do.
Yeah, and then imagine the views we'd get.
True. So I think we're good.
We're just gonna stop right there.
All right. So the one thing, and whatever, you can cut it out if you don't want it on air. But like, so on the way here, I was somebody mentioned about not just YouTube but also on Instagram video.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna make sure this is on an Instagram video.
Maybe.
Yeah. So make that happen. Jacob just promised to the world that this is going to be on Instagram video.
That's how politics work, right?
Yep. And yeah, you can join us on the discussion on Facebook. Tell me how, what we all didn't talk about, and please come on and talk about it with us instead. But join us on the Facebook groups. We have a blind partisan group, and there's the political radar group. I think both kind of skew into different territories, and so you might like one over the other. And follow me on Twitter. I'm Elliot on Twitter. What about you, Jacob? You just assume nobody cares about hearing from you?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. Tell you what, if someone actually wants to know, they can ask, and I'll be like, yo, here you go. I doubt that will happen.
I think your job in this ending period is supposed to be hit the subscribe button on YouTube.
Yeah, hit that bell, all that weird stuff, whatever YouTube wants this week.
And if you have ideas for topics, send them in to us.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
All right, we're done, right?
Yeah.
Done. Out.
Done.
Bye.
Peace.
Love you.
That's weird.
It's not weird at all. Love is a good thing.